Welcome to our deep dive into faith and doubt. We're looking at strengthening faith, overcoming doubt and uncertainty. And get this, the book actually says that doubt isn't the enemy of faith.
Oh,
It
yeah.
might actually be the key to like a stronger belief. What if doubt is the solution, not the problem? So let's see what we can learn.
Yeah, that's a fascinating approach. The book starts by looking at doubting Thomas,
Right.
the disciple who needed to actually touch Jesus's wounds to believe in the resurrection.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, the book argues that Thomas is actually like a model for us.
Whoa.
He demanded evidence, which ultimately strengthened his faith once he received it. And it makes you wonder how many of us are just too afraid to ask those hard questions.
I've always felt kind of sorry for Thomas, like he was the bad disciple. Right?
Yeah.
But this idea of him being a role model for asking questions is kind of mind-blowing.
It really challenges that traditional view, doesn't it? The book suggests that true faith isn't just about blind acceptance.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with our doubts, seeking understanding, and ultimately like arriving at a deeper, more resilient belief.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we go from doubt to actually strengthening our faith? It feels like those two things are kind of at odds with each other.
Well, think about it this way.
Yeah.
The book draws a parallel to the scientific method.
Uh-huh.
You start with like a hypothesis.
Right.
And in this case, it's faith. But then you test that hypothesis through experience, observation, and yes, even doubt.
Okay.
That's how knowledge is built. And the book argues that faith can be strengthened in a similar way.
So instead of shying away from doubt, we should actually lean into it. That feels a little counterintuitive, but I'm starting to see how it could work.
Exactly. It's about embracing that tension between faith and doubt,
Yeah.
recognizing that they can actually like coexist and even complement each other.
Okay. Yeah. This reminds me of something I've struggled with for a long time, that whole idea that even a tiny amount of faith can move mountains.
Right.
It's a nice thought, but honestly, sometimes my faith feels more like a speck of dust than a seed.
Yeah.
How do I even get started when it feels so small?
It's a really relatable struggle. The book uses the analogy of the mustard seed.
Right.
But it goes beyond just saying have faith, even if it's small. It emphasizes that it's not the size of your faith, but where you place it that matters. It's
Right.
about directing that faith, however small it may feel, towards God.
So it's less about the intensity of my faith and more about who or what I'm putting my faith in.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But how do I actually do that?
Well, one practical step the book suggests is engaging with Scripture in a meaningful way.
Okay.
It's not just about reading for quantity, but it's about quality.
Okay. I've tried reading the Bible. It can be hard to connect with sometimes.
Yeah.
It feels overwhelming. Any tips?
The book recommends trying something called Lectio Divina,
Okay.
which is kind of a slow and meditative way to read Scripture.
Yeah.
You choose a short passage and you read it like multiple times, reflecting on different aspects each time. So first you just listen to the words. Then you reflect on what stands out to you. Then you respond with your own like thoughts and prayers, and finally you simply rest in God's presence. It's about savoring the words and allowing them to speak to you on a deeper level.
That sounds much more approachable than just trying to read like chapters upon chapters.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to try that. But let's be real. Life isn't always calm and meditative.
Yeah.
Sometimes those storms hit,
Yeah.
and it's hard to hold on to even a sliver of faith.
Right.
How do we navigate those times when doubt just feels overwhelming?
The book addresses this beautifully using the story of Peter walking on water.
Okay.
He starts out strong, full of faith, actually walking towards Jesus, but then he takes his eyes off Jesus and focuses on the wind and waves, and he begins to sink.
I've been there. It's like 1 minute you're feeling good, and the next minute you're drowning in doubt.
Yeah.
What do we do when we find ourselves in that situation?
The book suggests that it's all about where we focus our attention.
Okay.
When we fixate on our problems, our fears, the storms in our lives, doubt naturally grows.
Right.
But when we keep our focus on God, on his power, on his love, that's when faith can flourish, even amidst the chaos.
That makes sense. It's like choosing to focus on the solution instead of the problem.
Exactly. It's a conscious shift in perspective. Instead of staring at the waves, we lift our eyes to Jesus, to the source of our strength and hope.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me. But let's be honest. Sometimes even when we try to shift our focus, doubt still creeps in.
Yeah.
We can feel like this internal battle, like between what we want to believe and what our doubts are telling us.
The book acknowledges this struggle and points to the story of the father who brings his son to Jesus for healing.
Right.
This man cries out, "I believe, help me overcome my unbelief." Talk about raw honesty.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's like he's acknowledging his desire to believe,
Yeah.
but also admitting that he's struggling.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is that Jesus doesn't condemn him for this honesty. He responds to his plea for help.
Yeah.
And the book highlights this as a crucial point. It's okay to bring our doubts to God.
Okay.
In fact, acknowledging them can be the first step towards a stronger, more authentic faith.
That's such a relief to hear. It's like we're allowed to be real with God about our struggles, our doubts, our fears. He's not expecting us to have it all figured out.
Exactly. And that's where the real transformation can begin.
Yeah.
By being honest with ourselves and with God, we open ourselves up to his grace and his power to work in our lives.
This has been so insightful already. I'm starting to see doubt in a whole new light. But before we move on, I want to pause and ask you, the listener, a question. Think back to a time when you needed proof before believing something. How did that experience shape your understanding? It's amazing how just like reframing doubt as something like positive, something to be explored, completely changes how we approach it. But how does this like actually work in practice? I mean, how do we go from like wrestling with those doubts to actually like feeling more confident in our faith?
Well, the source material kind of delves into this by suggesting that one of the first steps is acknowledging that that doubt often stems from a desire for deeper understanding.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about like rejecting faith altogether, but more like a questioning, a seeking.
So instead of suppressing or ignoring those questions, we should just lean into them.
Exactly. It's about giving ourselves permission to wrestle with those difficult concepts, to ask the tough questions. This could involve digging deeper into Scripture, having like open and honest conversations with others who share our faith, or even exploring different like theological perspectives.
So it's like saying to our doubt, okay, I see you. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's explore this together.
Precisely. And that exploration can lead to some pretty amazing discoveries.
Yeah.
And we might realize that our initial understanding was incomplete, or maybe we uncover like new insights that actually strengthen our faith in unexpected ways.
This reminds me of how we were talking about Thomas earlier. He needed that like physical evidence of Jesus's resurrection before he could truly believe.
Right. And the book makes the point that Jesus met Thomas right where he was at. He didn't shame him for needing proof. Instead, he provided the evidence that Thomas needed, which ultimately led to one of the most profound declarations of faith in the entire Bible, my Lord and my God.
It's like those moments of doubt were actually like the catalyst for an even deeper, more powerful belief.
That's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes facing our doubts head on is what allows us to move closer to that unshakable faith that we're seeking.
This is making me think about how sometimes doubt feels less like a quest for knowledge,
Yeah.
and more like crippling fear. It's like, what if I'm wrong? What if there's nothing there?
Those fears are very real.
Yeah.
And it's so important to acknowledge them. But the key is remembering that we're not alone in those moments. Even in the midst of our doubt, God is with us.
Sounds like he's saying, I'm not afraid of your questions. I'm not going to abandon you just because you're struggling. Bring it all to me.
Exactly. And that's where prayer becomes so vital.
Yeah.
Not just prayer for answers, but prayer for the strength to keep going, for the courage to face those fears.
And also for the humility to admit that we don't have all the answers.
Absolutely. Humility is essential on this journey of faith.
Yeah.
It allows us to recognize that our understanding is limited, and that we need God's guidance and wisdom.
We often view doubt as a sign of weakness.
Right.
But maybe it's actually a sign of strength. The strength to be honest with ourselves, with God, and with each other.
There's a lot of truth to that. It takes courage to admit we don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
It takes courage to keep seeking and questioning even when it's uncomfortable.
So doubt can be a sign of a healthy, growing faith. I'm really starting to see this whole concept in a new light.
It absolutely can be. It shows that we're engaged, wrestling with those big questions and not settling for superficial answers.
It's like we're willing to go on this journey of discovery, even if it's, messy and uncertain at times.
And that's where the real growth happens. That's where we develop a faith that's not just based on blind acceptance, but on deep understanding and personal conviction.
Okay, I'm really loving this reframing of doubt. It's like
Yeah.
instead of seeing it as the enemy of faith, we can view it as a partner, a catalyst for something stronger and more beautiful.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about eradicating doubt, but about transforming it into a force for good.
So how do we practically do that? How do we take those doubts and fears and turn them into something that actually strengthens our faith? The source material mentions engaging in spiritual practices that nurture our connection with God. What kinds of practices are they talking about?
It suggests things like spending time in nature, practicing gratitude, meditating on scripture, and engaging in acts of service. These practices help to ground us in God's presence, even when we're feeling lost or uncertain.
It's like creating those anchors for our
Yes.
faith. Things we can hold on to when the storms hit. What else does it suggest?
It highlights the importance of finding trusted mentors or spiritual guides who can walk alongside us on this journey.
Right.
People who have wrestled with their own doubts and come out stronger on the other side.
It's like having those companions for the journey
Yeah.
who can, offer wisdom, encouragement, and maybe even a little tough love when we need it.
Exactly. Sometimes we need someone to challenge our assumptions or help us see things from a different perspective.
And sometimes we just need someone to remind us that we're not alone. That it's okay to not have all the answers.
That's so true. And the beautiful thing is that when we open up to others about our doubts, we often find they're wrestling with similar questions.
Yeah.
And this shared vulnerability creates a sense of connection that can be incredibly healing.
This whole conversation is making me think about, how we talk about faith. It's like we're supposed to have it all figured out to be these unshakable beacons of certainty, but maybe that's just not realistic.
I agree. Maybe true faith is more about embracing the mystery, the unknown.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to walk in the dark sometimes, trusting that God is with us even when we can't see the path ahead.
Yeah, that idea of like embracing the mystery really resonates with me. It kind of takes the pressure off of having to have all the answers and allows us to approach faith with a sense of wonder and curiosity.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Like how do we move forward with confidence and hope when uncertainties still linger?
The source material suggests kind of a shift in perspective, moving from fear to curiosity.
Okay.
So instead of seeing doubt as a threat to our faith, we can choose to view it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, and deepen our understanding.
It's like approaching it with a sense of adventure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
but I'm excited to discover more.
Exactly. And that openness to discovery can lead to some pretty incredible breakthroughs.
Yeah.
We might gain fresh perspective, see things from new angles, and ultimately arrive at a more mature and well-rounded understanding of our faith.
It's like we're explorers setting out on this uncharted journey. We know there will be challenges and moments of doubt,
Right.
but we're also anticipating those moments of awe and discovery.
I love that analogy. And just like explorers, we don't have to navigate this journey alone. We have each other, our communities of faith, and most importantly, we have God walking alongside us every step of the way.
Speaking of God walking with us, the source material emphasizes the importance of remembering God's faithfulness in the past.
Right.
How does that help us move forward with confidence when we're facing uncertainties in the present?
It's like looking back at a trail of footprints in the sand. We
Yeah.
can see how God has guided us, provided for us, and been faithful time and time again.
Yeah.
And that track record gives us the assurance that He will continue to be faithful even when the path ahead isn't clear.
It's like building that muscle of trust.
Yeah.
The more evidence we see of God's faithfulness in our own lives, the easier it becomes to trust Him, even when we don't fully understand what he's doing or where he's leading us.
Precisely. It's a conscious choice to shift our focus from our limited understanding to God's infinite wisdom and power.
Okay, so we've talked about shifting from fear to curiosity, remembering God's faithfulness and trusting his guidance. But what about action? What role does action play in strengthening our faith and moving forward with confidence?
Action is essential. It's not enough to just think about or talk about faith. We need to live it out.
So even when we're wrestling with doubts, we should still strive to put our faith into practice.
Exactly. Sometimes the best way to overcome doubt is to act as if we believe. To take that step of faith, even when it feels risky or uncertain.
It's like that saying, "Lip and the net will appear."
I like that.
Yeah.
And often when we take that leap of faith, we experience God meeting us in extraordinary ways. We see his power, his love, and his guidance at work in tangible ways, and that strengthens our faith and propels us forward.
It sounds like a cyclical process. Action strengthens faith, which leads to more action, which leads to even stronger faith.
Exactly. And as we keep moving forward, taking those steps of faith, we find our doubts gradually diminishing. Not because they disappear entirely,
Right.
but because our trust in God has grown stronger.
It's like we're building a bridge over a chasm of doubt, one step at a time.
That's a great image. And as we build that bridge, we find we're not just crossing to the other side, but we're creating something beautiful and lasting. We're establishing a legacy of faith that can inspire and encourage others on their own journeys.
This has been such a thought-provoking and encouraging deep dive. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Doubt isn't the enemy of faith. It can be a catalyst for growth, a refiner's fire that leads to a deeper understanding. So embrace your doubts, wrestle with them honestly, and trust that God is with you every step of the way.
Beautifully said. And remember, you don't have to navigate this journey of faith alone. You have your community and you have the unwavering presence of God to guide you. May you go forward with confidence, curiosity, and a heart open to the wonders that await.